music. It's the only noise we make because we love it, and that's what makes it absolutely unique. But it also makes it really hard to believe that it could be doing us harm.
I'm Wurzel from Motorhead, and I made an awful lot of noise.
I'm Matt Hales. I'm a recording artiste, sort of known as Aqualung, and make records. I'm also a record producer and songwriter.
My name's Paul Gray. I spent, 25 years as a bass player for some of the more sort of nefarious and colourful rock bands that Britain's produced, including The Damned, UFO and Eddie and the Hot Rods.
My name's JFK, and I've been DJing for roughly around about 20 years.
My name's Andy Theakstone. I play drums for Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly.
My name's Rick Finlay. I'm a drummer and percussionist, and I've been playing for about 30 years.
My name's Pepin Clout. I'm the Special Projects Manager for John Henry's.
My name's Gavin Fitzjohn, and I play the trumpet and the saxophone for Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly, and some other musicians as well, Paolo Nutini.
My name's Chris Benstead, and I'm a composer.
And I'm Ben Hales, Matt's brother. We've been making music for, I don't know, well, at least 30 years.
Almost anyone choosing to work in the music industry in any capacity does so because they're passionate about music.
I've been playing music since I left school, really.
My name's Chris Howard. I play the drums, been playing since I was about 8 years old.
My name's Johnny Henry. I've been DJing and working in the music industry for about 10 years.
I've been playing with bands since, I was at school and stuff.
I've been involved professionally for about 25 years now.
I've been playing the drums for probably about 20 years now.
12 years with Motorhead is enough for anyone, I think.
It seems completely counterintuitive to think that their love of music could result in them not being able to hear it at all, because loud music can cause noise-induced hearing loss in the same way as pneumatic drills and industrial machinery.
No one really tells you something like that. It's just something you pick up with over time. You notice that when you're working at shows or around instruments all the time, you'll come back from work one day and be like, you'll be hurting a bit.
I was just 8 years old, just steaming straight into it and enjoying it.
I never ever played in a band quite as loud as this one was. So no, it didn't cross our mind.
When I was like 22 playing in a heavy rock band, it was just about, get the stuff out there as loud as humanly possible.
I had no idea at all that the sound was doing any damage to my hearing whatsoever.
I had no idea about volume. Being a teenager, you don't really think about those things.
I don't think I was aware of the risk of hearing damage early on, and I don't think it was that well considered 30 years ago.
We started doing it when we were really young, and we wouldn't think about that. Certainly the neighbours let us know it was damaging their hearing.
It is a concern, obviously, for everybody involved in the music industry, whatever level they're involved at.
Anyone who's been to a concert or club is bound to be familiar with the numbness or the ringing in the ears that follows, but on most occasions your hearing does come back to normal after a few hours. But hearing damage is cumulative, and eventually deafness could become a permanent feature. And once damaged, hearing does not recover, ever.
Saw Chuck Berry at the Lewisham Odeon, and I remember coming back from that concert and having my ears ringing.
I do get ringing in my ears after gigs.
I remember when I was about maybe 15, I went to a Foo Fighters gig in Cardiff. And I remember coming home and just had kind of a bit of ringing, and then the next morning it kind of didn't go away for a while, and it kind of really scares you, really scares you when you first get it.
Having a bit of a buzz in my ears or ringing sound, which I used to ignore, but then you can't, after a while, it's just actually quite a worry.
It's definitely a few times that you come off stage and you realise that there's that strange effect of everything having gone a bit quieter, and you might not have realised it. It's something about when you're having a good time, you sort of don't really realise. And that's sometimes a risk that you actually, if you're having a great show, you kind of do turn it up perhaps, or even if you're mixing and it's really feeling really vibey, you sort of it creeps up, and it's only afterwards that you kind of go, hang on a second, that's a bit strange. It feels like I've got this kind of sort of deadened feeling in my ears.
About half the people that we see with noise-induced hearing loss have had some musical basis to that. Sometimes it's music that they've been exposed to as an audience member, sometimes music that they've performed or have come across in their professional life, so a whole variety of different contexts.
It's easy to think that your hearing toughens up after a lot of exposure to loud music over a long, sustained period of time. But in fact, this isn't the case at all. Most people who have noise-induced hearing loss aren't aware of it until the damage is quite extensive.
In my own practice, I'm seeing about 2 or 3 people a week who are coming with clear noise-related problems. Some of those are due to music, some of them are due to occupational noise, maybe about half and half. But I think about 10% of hearing loss in general is associated with noise-induced hearing loss.
We'd finished playing on stage and I thought, I can't really hear what people are saying to me. And about 2 hours later, my ears calmed down and I could understand what people said. Otherwise, I just went, well, I didn't hear a word.
I had and still have tinnitus, which is this sort of constant ringing noise, and sometimes it's knocking noise, and sometimes it's whooshing, and sometimes all three.
I got used to the fact that I got tinnitus in my left ear, and it gradually got worse and worse, and I got it in my right ear as well.
I've got tinnitus in my left ear, so basically it's sort of constant ringing in my left ear, and I can really only attribute that to the years that I've been playing.
As time went on, then yeah, sure, I thought, I've got a problem with my hearing.
There's a fairly consistent sequence of feelings that people who use their hearing for their living go through when they start to realise they've got a hearing problem due to noise. At first, people are in denial and try and pretend there really isn't a problem and try and work around it. Then they become angry and upset and perhaps apologetic for the fact that their hearing is going, and finally they come to the conclusion that they've got to do something about it. So that kind of realism sometimes comes a bit too late.
And it got to the point where, you know, before I went to see a GP, I was watching TV and I said to my wife, is it going to be like this for the rest of my life? Am I going to be disabled almost for the rest of my life? Am I going to have to quit DJing? Am I actually going to have to think about working in a different environment because I'm not going to be able to hear the music?
Lots of people with tinnitus don't have trouble with it. That's one of the interesting things about it. But if you do have troublesome tinnitus, and that's about 5% of this country's population, then there's a little grouping together of trouble with sleep, trouble with concentration, feeling distressed, irritable and anxious, and very starkly aware of this prominent tinnitus sound that seems to override all other sound and to overwhelm you.
I kind of woke up one morning after a tour had finished after about 3 weeks and realised that my ears were still ringing.
It's like something like 4,000 watts on stage. Not as bad as this for you guys. You've got 120,000 watts coming out the front. You know? Yeah, it's a pain in the ear. Also.
And I think probably about the previous 10 years, after every gig, my ears rang, and so did pretty much everybody else's, but it was part of the job. You know, a bit like getting a hangover, you kind of expect those things to happen.
Well, see, on Motorhead, wallop us have some. It doesn't matter, does it? Because you think, yes, well, I'm there. I don't care about my ears anymore.
They did all these tests, all these sort of isolation booths and everything, and you got to press a little buzzer when you can hear beeps, and they go up the frequencies and all that kind of stuff. And it took pretty much all day. And when I came out, he presented me with this sort of, you know, sheaf of graphs and all this. And I said, cool, that looks impressive. He said, well, I'm sorry to tell you, you've got severe acoustic trauma. What's that mean? He said, your ears are buggered.
Tinnitus can manifest itself as like a ringing, humming, buzzing, whistling sound in the ear, and for anyone it's a really distressing condition. But for someone working in the music industry, it can really interfere with their ability to do their job.
It certainly isn't just the musicians themselves that are at risk in that regard. Lots of other people in the industry use their hearing. So the guy who's doing the mixing, both in a studio and in terms of live performance, the lighting engineer who's following the music and integrating the light show with the sound, and any number of other people are exposed to sound and can find that sound challenging, troubling and ultimately harmful.
You know, to play music and to work in this industry, you need to be able to hear, you know, obviously, so I've lost that. I'd have to find something else to do, you know, and that's just no good.
Which would be tragic really, because it's the only thing I feel like I can really do, and the only thing I'd ever want to do as well.
It's part of my whole way of life, hearing. You know, it would massively affect my livelihood, probably take most of it, the best part of it away.
You wouldn't be much of a musician if you couldn't hear anything, so it's like it's part of your instrument.
Equally, having a gap in your hearing range will mean that parts of pieces of music are simply missing, never to be heard again.
I mean, I do a lot of sound engineering as well. I run a studio, and I think it would be detrimental to my career.
I do a lot of work in the studio as well as, you know, playing live, being a live drummer, which is where you really notice it.
The whole kind of production side would be, I wouldn't be able to do that because you've got to listen on such a kind of specific level.
For me, it would be devastating, and it would take an awful lot of the kind of fundamental sensual pleasure that is what music is to some extent out of it.
We all know about silent dog whistles, but they're not silent at all. They're just in a range that's imperceptible to us. It's a bit like being colourblind. If you can't see a colour, you just can't see it.
F's and TH's and soft-sounding vowels, they're sometimes very difficult to hear properly.
It's just living life on a day-to-day basis as well. You know, you need to be able to hear what's going on around you, especially in this industry. I mean, you could be doing anything.
I find it really, really difficult to concentrate.
You know, I would rather sort of lose my sight than my hearing, because I think with your hearing it's so important, because otherwise, you know, if you can't hear, you're living in a completely silent world. It's almost impossible to interact.
I constantly feel frazzled. You know, 24 hours a day I feel frazzled because I've got this constant noise in my ears the whole time.
There's this guy sitting in a bar with me, and there's a lot of background sound, and I tell you, that affects the hearing with a lot of noise going on. So and he was telling me that his mother had just died. And I went, oh, great, mate. I said, oh, okay, mate, because I couldn't hear. You know, just to agree with everyone.
And I've got a little boy now who's just coming up to 4. What really kind of cuts me more than anything else is the fact that when he sort of laughs, you know, which they do a lot, and cries, I can't be around him because my ears rattle, the tinnitus goes up, you know, I tense more, I'm really stressed. So it's things like that, and that's really, you know, it's really quite horrible because it's, you know, I can't put him on his shoulders because I've got to say, you know, don't laugh, Jeff, because it's going to hurt, you know, hurt Daddy's ears.
You know, from what I've spoken to friends of mine who have got things like tinnitus, you know, it's not just the social problems. I mean, they feel like they're losing their sanity at times.
My impression is that people with really bad tinnitus are fighting their own emotional response to it a lot of the time.
Over a period of time, noise damage to hearing will result in a dulling of all sound. Now, for anyone in any walk of life, that can be really sad. For a musician or technician, it can be tragic, and it could also mean that their career in music has to come to an end.
One of the difficult sets of conversations we have to have is with people who are in the music industry who've got noise-induced hearing loss and tinnitus, and who are really seeing the possibility that they might have to give up their musical career because of that. That's a really sensitive conversation that we have to have because you're balancing risk and distress against something that somebody loves to do.
Having to actually stop doing something that you love doing and has been your dream since you were 10 or 12 years old, you know, having first seen T-Rex on Top of the Pops, it's really difficult. I did it for 20 years, pretty much. And it's the only thing that I could really say that I was good at doing, because I left school to join the first band. Within 6 months we had a record deal. Within 9 months we were Tommy Blonde in America. You know, don't get much better than that.
And I wouldn't like to take it any further to say that, you know, at one point in the future that I'm not going to be able to actually hear the music I love to either make or to play out as a DJ, but that's why I'm trying to take precautions now to stop it getting any further.
A real important part of the process of making music is you know, having that sort of creative outlet, and if there's some kind of hearing defect or it worsens and that's going to affect that, then yeah, I I would miss it, but I'd be really disappointed that I hadn't taken precautions because it's something that I could have avoided.
People in the music business are becoming increasingly aware that they need to protect their hearing to keep their jobs and to continue enjoying music.
I mean, I'm like an ex-smoker, I'm telling a lot of the people that work in and around me and a lot of the clubbers that come to see me that if they're in and around the music, they need to protect their ears.
I'm certainly aware that other musicians are getting hearing protection. Several members of the Jules Holland band that I work with now work with either in-ear monitors, which work in a way as a form of blocking out the live really loud sound so that they can have a quieter version of the mix in their own. And several of the jazz musicians I work with suffer from tinnitus as well, so they have their own custom built ear defenders that they work.
On my keyring I've always got them disposable earplugs. The yellow ones, I've got a little thing for one of them, so whenever I go to a show they're always there.
Yeah, we've all got earplugs for the band, moulded earplugs to our ears sort of thing.
Yeah, I've got some earplugs. I've got some moulded, like, the ones that are, like, specifically for your ears.
I use a set of earplugs which are actually moulded and fitted to my ears.
Performing or rehearsing, or I'm going to a gig or to a club, I'll take some earplugs with me to wear.
I've got some earplugs of different styles.
I use earplugs when I'm in a very loud situation.
Unlike some conventional off-the-shelf plugs, which sometimes fit and sometimes don't, our custom moulded plugs are perfect every time, very comfortable. We manufacture products which basically have got a flat response, so the sound is very natural, but equally is at a reduced volume. So basically the noise level is reduced massively, but you've still got a good comprehension of the sound of the music.
The good news is that for the new generation of music lovers, it's an entirely preventable tragedy. Awareness, common sense and good protection are all that's needed to prevent any hearing loss. The simple rules of thumb are: if noise hurts, it's too loud.
Don't stick your head in the bass bins when it's stupid like that. I did that once.
If sound is of sufficient intensity to cause physical damage to the very delicate structures of the inner ear, then it will cause hearing loss.
The longer you're exposed to loud noise, the greater the damage.
There is a relationship between how long you listen to sound for and how loud it is that helps us predict whether it's going to be harmful or not. In technical terms, we use the phrase the noise dose that people get.
The regulation allows people to work to the lower action value of 80 dB, 80 decibel. That is for an average 8-hour day. If you increase the level, the sound pressure level, noise, by 3 decibels, that's a doubling of the sound pressure level. So what that will do, it will halve the time that people can work there. So from 80 to 83 goes from 8 to 4 hours. 86 decibel takes exposure down to 2 hours, and so on. So you can see that rapidly in the lower 90s, you're down at the 1 hour mark, and if you get into the 100 decibels, you're down in a few minutes.
In every hour that you're likely to be exposed to music, we suggest that you take 10 minutes out and be quieter. It's not always possible at a festival. Many clubs there are chill out rooms, at many concerts there are areas you can go to. It's rather interesting that most concerts are about an hour long, so it's possible to give yourself that kind of break between noise exposure.
If you've got earplugs in but you just don't stop rehearsing or listening to monitors really loud, then you're doing yourself harm. The most significant thing is to organise your sort of working day, that you get a rest.
Hearing protection is not about spoiling the music. It will actually prolong your enjoyment of it.
I think the fundamental message is that hearing is a fantastic gift. It's one of the most special gifts that human beings have been given. And as such, we really ought to take care to protect it. Everybody agrees that loud music is really exciting. It gives you that fantastic rush and feeling of being fully alive and fully engaged. But the trick is to enjoy loud sound at a level that's exciting, but also that's safe. One of the ways to do that is to take care and to get some decent earplugs that'll give you that kind of protection just to take enough off the sound level so it's safe but still exciting. The other is to make sure you have a break out of sound, maybe 10 minutes in every hour of listening to a concert. Get yourself somewhere quiet where your ears can just rest and recover and go back to the sound so you can enjoy it again.
Hi, this is Andy and Gavin from Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly. We're here to tell you that loud music can be a problem, can affect your hearing, so make sure you wear earplugs.
If there are any budding DJs or sound producers out there and you really want to get into the industry, it's a fantastic industry to get into. But just make sure that you think about protecting your ears at all times. If you're DJing, make sure your headphones aren't too loud. Don't have them on full, have them on 3/4. Train your ears to listen to the sound rather than the sound to hit your ears.
The one thing I would say to people about hearing protection is not to be put off using it because of the practical difficulties. You need sometimes to take hearing protection out so that you can discuss things, so that you can hear small detail. But don't let the practical difficulties stop you using hearing protection altogether.
You must keep your volume, down.
If I knew then what I know now, I'd make sure I had my ears protected. I'd make sure a lot of other things as well, like I had all my contracts protected, but that's another story.
If you're getting into this industry, you need to be able to hear. You know, the minute things start going bad with your ears, you don't hear notes properly, you hear things out of tune, and yeah, it's just bad for you. So take as much precaution of your hearing as you can, because you only get one set of them. My advice would be to anyone trying to get into, being a musician or involved in the music industry, is to look at your career and want as long a career as you can have, and to protect your ears as much as you can, because that'll, lengthen your career. 5 years of really loud music when you start off when you're younger might, affect the end of your career. So I guess that's my advice, is just do it like that.
Please, look after your head! Look after it! Look after your hearing! We're grown-ups.
What's the very start again?
The way in which hearing will be affected
Oh, yeah.
by noise.
We could do a dance. We could do maybe like a role play of like Andy behind the kit and then like, don't do that. No. I think we need to work on our interview skills a little bit.
Anyone who's been to a concert or club is bound to be familiar with the...
You could put your head next to the bongo, I'll whack it.
Yeah,
and I'll
that
say,
wasn't a good idea.
No, I'll say, did that hurt? And you go, no, I've got an earplug in.
Yeah. And then we've got some kind of graphic at the bottom maybe.
But in fact, this isn't the case at all. Most
Yeah, I don't know really. That probably says it. I don't know. Is there any? You must have had everyone going. Look, and you only get one. You only get one hearing. You've only got one ear.
Anyone who's been to a concert or club is bound to be familiar with the... I can't remember anything now.
You can do one.
Yeah. Well, that was more or less.
Different people...
I used to put 2 in. Well, I did it once, put 2 in. After about 20 minutes, I took one out. So this is no good. Doesn't sound like Motorhead. Listen to that. You hear his mobile phone go off in the middle of it. How rude is that?
And most of the time, your hearing does return after a couple of hours. But
To be a drummer who couldn't play because it was just too loud.
Yeah.
And so on.
Stop driving.
It's really good then. Yeah. It's quite moving actually.
It's easy to think that your hearing toughens up after a lot of exposure to music. Oh, after, what is it?
It's a case of getting something that doesn't interfere with that, which I imagine you can do. You just have to pay for it. Otherwise, you'll pay for it.
You really will pay for it, Ben. That's right.
Tinnitus can manifest itself as a ringing, humming, buzzing or whistling sound in the ears. And for